Okay, this is where things get boring, but we're almost done, so bear with me. I might as well, clean up as long as I'm making these. So, first up on the mantra today is kickers. Now, a kicker is exactly what it sounds like. They're supposed to kick the ball. They start the games off with their kickoffs from the 30-yard line, kicking it to the other team, trying to, kick it into the end zone, generate a touchback, that sort of stuff. And that's pretty much just kicking it as hard as you can and keeping it in play. Some kickers have a problem with that, but for the most part, that's about what it is. And, of course, they're also supposed to kick field goals, those little three-point second place points that usually fall somewhere in between 20 yards and 60 yards. For some kickers, their range only goes out to about 50 yards. Depends on what kicker you're dealing with. And, of course, extra points, which are pretty much considered gimme points in the league, but sometimes you'd be surprised. And, that's pretty much all kickers are expected to do. It's very self-explanatory, and there's no intricacies to it. It's about having a powerful leg, accurate, just syncing things up really well. Okay. Up here in Seattle right now, as far as I know, we only have one kicker on our roster, as most teams have. So, yeah, he's Josh Brown. Most people by now know him for a number of different reasons. Missed a couple kicks in the Super Bowl last year that were considered pretty important to how the game ended up turning out, which is, of course, a shame that that some people remember him for this, but it happened. So, yeah. And this last year, he was really fantastic. He missed 6 field goals. 3 of them were blocked. So, that's actually pretty average in its own right. But he had 4 game-winning field goals with, less than 10 seconds left or whatever. 2 of them just flat out won. The game was the difference between winning and losing. The other 2 were the difference between a win and going into overtime. So he was obviously very big for us last year, hitting 2 50-plus yard field goals to win games. He was, in general, very accurate, and in pretty much any game where he ended up missing a field goal, he would come back later in the game and hit crucial field goals. We've designated him as our franchise player now, so we're hoping to lock him up long-term soon because he's a good young kicker, and I know a lot of teams would be happy to have him, so gonna go for that, and really that's about it. And there's not really anything I can say about kickers except, I can mention some of the really good ones around the league. Adam Vinatieri, known for being clutch. Shane Graham in Cincinnati. Neil Rackers in Arizona. Robbie Gould in Chicago. The late Mike Vanderjagt, kind of fallen off the face of the earth. Really, the best kickers you shouldn't be hearing about too much, because if you hear a lot about a kicker, it's probably because he's not doing so well. Like, Jay Feely, for instance, gets more attention for his 3 missed field goals up here in Seattle a couple of years ago than for anything else. And Vanderjagt, he got all the attention in the world after shanking that, potential game-tying field goal against Pittsburgh in the playoffs last season. So, yeah. For me, the best kicker in the league right now is probably, I'm going to go with Shane Graham in Cincinnati. Seems to be pretty good in the, every time you send him out there, you can usually depend on him to hit the field goal. He's relatively clutch. I don't know how he exactly stacks up to somebody like Adam Vinatieri, but, I'm not too big on Vinatieri. I know he's done some great things, but I think a lot of kickers could have made those kicks. I respect what he did, but I think a lot of kickers could have made the same kicks that he did that put him on the map. So, yeah. Overrated kicker. Neil Racker's got a ton of attention. in 2005 for making all those field goals, and then we saw him kind of fall flat on his face this year. So really, the kicker position is so fluid. So maybe him, Robbie Gould. We don't know how he does outside of 50 yards yet, since he doesn't really get the opportunity to try those. As for an underrated kicker, I can't say I know very many kickers that I would consider underrated, but Josh Brown missed the Pro Bowl this last year in spite of his fantastic season, so he's one of those guys I would definitely consider. Matt Stover in Baltimore has been one of my favorite guys for quite a while, and he still gets his due credit, but maybe not as much as he deserves, especially over his career, so maybe him. A breakout kicker this year, who's that second-year player for Green Bay, the rookie last year? I can't remember his name, but I can see him hitting a lot of field goals this season. So him. And as long as I'm here, I guess I'll go ahead and cover some punters because, well, that's even more boring than kickers, and it won't take that long. So, right now up in Seattle, we've got Ryan Plackmeyer handling punting duties, and I'm very excited to see where this kid's career goes. This is his second year now. Rookie last year, 7th-round pick. Came on after we cut Tom Ruin, however you pronounce his name, after he kind of stunk it up for us in the Super Bowl. But, he was impressive last year. He had a couple of unfortunate moments, a couple of bad kicks here and there, but for the most part, he was consistent, and he had some very nice kicks. He really did a good job for us stepping in with a lot of pressure on him. As a holder, he struggled a little bit. I think he was part of the reason Josh Brown missed a couple of his field goals, but I'm very excited to see where his career goes because it's always nice knowing that you've got a pair of a young kicker and a young punter, so you don't have to worry about that for a long time. One of my favorite plays from him last year was in the Dallas game with like 8 seconds left. There was a bad snap, but he scooped it off the ground and got the punt off. So I'm happy with him. I guess I'd give our kicker situation an A- and our punting situation an A- too because, two young guys that I'm happy with. I see the punter getting better in the future, as I already said. So yeah. Well, punters, they're pretty much asked to do one thing in this league, and that is punt. On 4th down, he comes on, he punts the ball, trying to... he's giving the ball to the other team, but he's trying to set you up with the best field position possible. So it's an important part of a team, even though, as a football fan, very few people actually care very much about punters. Sometimes they're expected to hold for you, but for the most part, with a punter, you're looking for kick power, kick accuracy, and hang time. They can't outkick the coverage, so they can't kick it too far. They like to try and angle it toward the sideline so it gets out of bounds before the returner has a chance to get to it. That sort of stuff. I mean, the high-profile punters in this league right now, best punter in the league is generally considered to be Brian Moorman in Buffalo because he's also a very athletic guy on top of being a great punter. Matt McBriar in Dallas, Chris Gardocki in Pittsburgh. For me, the best punter in the league is Brian Moorman because he also has potential to break big ones off on trick plays on top of his pretty damn good punting repertoire. As for an overrated punter, I'm not even going to touch this one, man. I mean, punters don't get any attention, so I don't know. Underrated guy, maybe Baker in Carolina. I think that's his name, Baker. I like him a lot. Doesn't get a lot of attention. No punters do, but even as far as punters go. Breakout punter this year? Don't look at me, man. I'm sorry, but punters are punters. Okay, so looks like I got one more video left to make, and then we're done. So see you then. I'm out.